Hello guys, and welcome back to another recent reads video. Today I'm going to be talking about a couple of books that were just a bit meh for me. The first book I'm going to speak about is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. I actually listened to this as an audiobook and this is a novella. I'm going to read to you what the publishers have sort of summarised the book as, and then sort of talk about my thoughts and feelings, just because I don't really think I can actually perfectly encapsulate this book, because from what I've read on the back, and obviously now having listened to it, I just kind of don't feel that that's what the book is about. So it says here, at the turn of the 22nd century, scientists make a breakthrough in human spaceflight. Through a revolutionary method known as somaforming, astronauts can survive in hostile environments off Earth using synthetic biological supplementation. They can produce antifreeze in sub-zero temperatures, absorb radiation, convert it for food, and conveniently adjust to the pull of different gravitational forces. With the fragility of the body no longer a limiting factor, human beings are at last able to explore neighbouring exoplanets long suspected to harbour life. Ariadne is one such explorer. On a mission to ecologically survive 4 habitable worlds within 15 light years from Earth, she and her fellow crewmates sleep while in transit, and wake each time with different features. But as they shift between both form and time, life back on Earth has also changed. Faced with the possibility of returning to a planet that has forgotten those who have left, Ariadne begins to chronicle the wonders and the dangers of her journey in the hope that someone back home might still be listening. Now, everything that they have described in like that first chapter, and perhaps not the first chapter, the first paragraph, and like the first bit of the second paragraph, is mentioned very briefly in the book. I kind of thought the book was going to be more about that. Ariadne does talk about the fact that, you know, they're able to sort of, I think, change form, and talking about absorbing radiation, things converted for food, and their body parts. But other than that, I don't really think that this back of the book basically summarises what's in the book, but then it doesn't go any further. And I think the book is basically what the end chapter is, where it says here, not end chapter, what the end paragraph is, where it says here, faced with the possibility of returning to a planet that has long forgotten those who have left, Ariadne begins to chronicle the wonders and dangers of her journey in the hope that someone back home might be listening. Because what this book is 4 chapters essentially of the different planets, different planets that they visit, and Ariadne recounting back to us what they sort of endured whilst they were on that planet. And this is in the form of an extremely long ass letter. Obviously this is told, I listened to it as an audiobook, but she is writing a letter back to Earth in the chance that someone is listening, because they've explored these 4 planets and perhaps there's the chance that they won't be coming back to Earth. And like it says in the back, there is a possibility that Earth has forgotten them, or that the organisation that sent them out there actually no longer exists, because Earth changes so dramatically when they're in these different places that they get these updates, but sometimes the updates don't come through, sometimes they do, all sorts of different things that they just don't really know what's happening. And essentially this book is that exploration, but I feel like the book is more of an exploration of the people on this adventure. She does obviously talk about the planets and the things they face on these planets, and if they find different things, but it's like when they discover something, a lot of her reaction and a lot of her telling us, the reader, about stuff is to do with the reactions of the scientists. Like if they laugh, if they blinked, if they're in a bad mood. Like it's very much about the personal relationships of these people. I felt reading it, that's what I just thought, and I was just a bit like, I want some more space exploring. Like when they land on different planets, like I don't feel like there's that much exploration, apart from the one time where they go to another planet where they land and they can't actually like get out of the sort of spacecraft that they're in. So then there's a lot of talk about how miserable they all are and how these animals around them are screaming and all these sorts of things. And I feel like that's when we actually got the most description of what was on the different planets, rather than these sort of internal politics or just internal relationships that were going on in this story. Because I felt like every other planet they visited to, it was a lot more to do with the background of these people on the spacecraft. It was just very bizarre, and there was nothing actually wrong with the interaction with these people, but I felt like if the book had been marketed as that and I knew that's what it was going into it, I wouldn't have picked it up. I will say what this book did do really well towards the end was the topic of morality and, you know, exploration, about leaving things as you found them so that you're not interfering with the things that you found. They brought into question a lot of that towards the end. I kind of felt that sort of came out of nowhere. I felt a little bit blindsided by it, but I also thought it was really important. And I wish, like, had the book actually have been like, you know, them exploring the different planets and going into them and describing sort of them venturing out and then adding in that element, it would have worked together really nicely. But because a lot of it was about their interpersonal relationships, and then we were sort of blindsided with the morality and these sort of effects of exploring, and, you know, do we have the right to explore? Do we have the right to sort of change all these habitats? Like, what is our impression that we leave behind when we leave? Because it sort of brought all of that up later, I was a bit like, yeah, good point, but it doesn't gel with the rest of the story. Another issue I guess I really had with this is because it's told from the perspective of one person who drones on and on and on. It gets a bit jarring after a while. Ariadne as a narrator, she was a person, like a real person that, you know, you really felt her ups and downs, and there is a period where she's hit with like strong depression in this, and, you know, something terrible really happens because they're all stuck in like this spacecraft for like 4 months, and I think when they see a chance to go out, that some sort of issue occurs, and, you know, you really feel the sort of height and the emotion, well, the height of the emotion in this particular instance, and I don't know, it was so wonderfully conveyed to us to read it. But because we've had so much of Ariadne droning beforehand, and then we got more of her droning after, I felt like it just took away from the poignancy of that moment. I was just a bit like, that moment was so intense, and I think it was one of the strongest bits of that book. But then it just carried on in the same capacity throughout. I really just wish we had the chance to actually hear from the other explorers on this. I think it would actually added a lot more to this story. I think I might mention this when I did that video about my currently reading and loving as well. But when I saw on this is what I saw on Goodreads, and this is not something that I was actually able to pick up on whilst reading the book. But I think there's a lot of representation in here in terms of sexuality. So I think one of the characters is pansexual. I think one of the characters is trans. I know that they said I think one of the characters is also bisexual. I know Ariadne herself has relationships with both men and women on the spacecraft. And all of that I think was so nicely done, just blended in with the story. It wasn't a focal point, you know. She doesn't even try to bring in the fact that, you know, maybe this girl's just bored because she's stuck on a spaceship and that's why. There's none of that. It's just a simple, like really simple moments where she's just like, you know, we lay down nose to nose when she's talking about the woman, then maybe like the guy says, would you like to come to bed? And she goes to bed with him. That sounds quite crass as I'm saying it, but in the book it doesn't come across as that. So I thought that was very nicely done. But other than that, I couldn't really give the story anything more than just 2 stars because I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't feel like what it said on the back was what the book was, and what I did read in the book I wasn't really enjoying. So overall I was just a bit like, well, it's 2 stars. And like, it ends really nicely, you know. I get the decision that they all make at the end, and the sort of title, you know, to be taught if fortunate, and how she wraps that in with the end, and how that's actually, you know, in the book. I liked that, but overall I couldn't. But the reason why I said I was going to read this book, at least I picked it up, was because I wanted to read her, I think it's Wayfarer series or something like that, and I wanted to see just sort of what her writing was like. I'm still going to give that series a shot, even though I didn't really enjoy this, because I don't know if I would have enjoyed this more if I read it. I don't know, but I'm not actually going to go out and buy it because it's not like I had a good reading experience with it. The next book I'm going to mention is Blue Ticket by Sophie Mackintosh. Again, I did mention this book in my currently reading, loving video, but that has been quite a while ago now. I picked this book up because I wanted to read Sophie Mackintosh's The Water Cure. I think it was either longlisted or shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize last year. And when I saw this on NetGalley, I thought, oh, let me just give this a go because I can just sort of see what her writing is like. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to pick up The Water Cure because of this, because I really didn't enjoy this book. Blue Ticket is about our main character, Calla, who is in a world where women are given, not women, sorry, even, girls are given tickets, I think, when they have their first period. Yes, when they have their first period, they are taken to some unknown building. You sit down, you're given a ticket. If you're given a blue ticket, you are granted freedom. If you're given a white ticket, you will go on to have a family. I'm going to read what it says on the back of the book so we can get a better understanding. It says here, Carla knows how the lottery works. Everyone does, blah, blah, blah. You report to the station. A white ticket grants you freedom. A blue ticket grants you freedom. You are relieved of the terrible burden of choice. And once you've taken your ticket, there is no going back. But what if the life you're given is the wrong one? Blue Ticket is a devastating inquiry into free will and the fraught space of motherhood. Bold and chilling, it pushes beneath the skin of female identity and patriarchal violence to the point where human longing meets our animal bodies. And this book, I mean, straight off the bat, when you read that, right, you can just pick up where the issue is, because it's a talk of choice. And I guess if you're just thinking about the book in the terms of the world it applies to, actually, that's right, it's choice. But I think because of how society is now and how people see things like marriage, having children, and whether or not women have choice in it, whether or not we feel pressured and stuff like that, I felt like this book, you know, straight off the cord, I think it puts a sort of negative taste in people's mouths, because I don't know, you kind of go into the book thinking, right, is this book going to argue about the fact that, you know, going on to have babies in a family is, you know, chaining you, it's not freedom. But, you know, take that away from the book, whatever sort of decisions or prejudices you have about the sort of world that she has built there. Take that away and read the book. On its own, the book isn't great. Like, I just wanted so much more from this book, and what I got was very straightforward. Of course, the woman who's given the blue ticket doesn't want the goddamn blue ticket. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when she gets the ticket, she's all fine with it, you know, does her partying and has her choice or whatever. And then about 10 years later realizes, actually, no, she wants to be a mother. And the reason why this book fails so strongly is because it lacks world building. It lacks a lot of world building, and you, the reader, don't understand that the world that she's living in. Why is this society like this? Why is this society giving out tickets and allocating who can and can't have children? Also, I guess a bit that really, really irritates me about this book is throughout the whole book, our main character and like other people, women that she meets, is like, talks about the different things that they have done or the different things they feel, and why, you know, that makes them a good mother or doesn't make them a good mother. But the thing is about this, it is a lottery. It is not based on anything because it's random. Like, I don't understand the thoughts that they're having about, you know, the lottery not choosing them to be a mother. Like, I could understand if this was based on, you know, an assessment and they went through a doctor assessment and then gave them a ticket. By the definition of what we're told in the story, this is completely random. So it doesn't really matter if you're going to be a good mother, if you were suited to be a good mother or a bad mother. That doesn't matter. The tickets are just allocated at random. So I just thought, why are any of the characters here questioning their sort of thoughts that they have or their mothering instincts? Because that's not what the lottery was about. By definition, that's not what a lottery is. And you went through the process. Like, you weren't assessed by someone who said, yes, that womb looks fantastic, you'll be a good mother. And I was just like, so this is really random. And I just kind of felt that all the women in this society are fucking stupid, and all the men in it are stupid as well. Because I was just like, why is everyone so baffled by this? Like, obviously, you're going to be given a ticket and you might not like it. The story just kept trying to prove that, you know, whether or not you were reckless, drank a lot, had sex with loads of men, that doesn't mean you couldn't be a good mother. And I just kind of think, that's fine if this book was set in this society and that's what you were trying to say. But you've set it in a world where being able to have a family and being able to have a baby is random, so none of that matters. In a way, it just kind of felt like Calla wanted to be a mother because the decision was taken away from her, and I just kind of think, well, yeah, if you wanted to write that book, you should have wrote that book, but I think the unnecessary blurb of what it says that the book is about and what the book actually takes us through is very unnecessary. Like, I get if you wanted to talk about the fact that choice has been taken away from you, that would have been a very interesting subject matter, but that wasn't what the case, was it? It kind of was and wasn't. That being said, she actually does make really stupid goddamn choices, like before she was a mother and after she was a mother. So I kind of think, like, you're sat here talking about whether or not you'd be a good mother. I think by definition of the choices that you've made, perhaps you wouldn't be a good mother because you're endangering your child simply so that you can have a choice to have a child. By doing that, I think Calla sort of proves that she shouldn't be a mum. In this book, Calla goes on a run because she's basically decided to have a baby. She is now a fugitive in the society that she lives in. So it's very interesting, like, actually, because they they put birth control into these women, so essentially like the coil and things like that, and a lot of tales is of women taking these coils out, which just makes my stomach hurt. And then yes, they have to go on the run. They're sort of given like this sort of medical pack, which I don't know if it's a pack for you to go on the run or if it's a home abortion kit. I'm never really too sure about that. But then, yeah, she basically decides to become a fugitive and sort of goes on a run. And of course she meets other women who are sort of doing the same thing. And it kind of becomes this like road trip, wilderness kind of story. It all becomes really wild. So then obviously because these women are doing things that puts their lives at risk, puts their babies' lives at risk, they're not obviously having hospital appointments and things like that. It all becomes really murky, I guess, for you, the reader, to decide whether or not actually, do these women deserve to be good mothers? Do these women deserve to be mothers? But yeah, I don't really think that's what the point of the book is, though. So put aside, I guess, my issues with the dilemma the book sort of throws at you, the writing is really hard to get through. It's very, very stilted. Like, I just feel like everything is so forced in this book. Like, everything happens along the way to sort of push our character through the story, rather than it kind of feeling like this sort of naturally happened. It just feels like, ooh, gee, that's a coincidence. Like, ooh, that happened, that's a coincidence. It just felt very forced. Like, I don't know, this book just felt like a very knee-jerk reaction to the fact that that decision was taken away from it. And I don't know, like, I question had she been given another ticket, would she have even wanted to be a mother? Like, would she have decided that actually she didn't want to have children? Because that's, you kind of get that that's the kind of character she is. So therefore you just kind of feel like you're reading about a teenager who is just acting out. It just reads really weirdly. But yeah, definitely my thing about the writing was everything felt so forced, everything felt so convenient. The writing felt so detached from the character. Like, there are bits of colour that she's talking about and it just reads like some sort of angry 15-year-old that she's trying to sound dark and deep, and it's just like, we're really bored by you at this point. I sound like I'm being so harsh on this book, and I felt like, are you being really harsh on this book? And I went to Goodreads and read like other people were thinking the exact same thing as me. The world building for this is not there, and you just kind of don't feel any empathy at all for Carla. And it's not because, you know, you think, oh, she's endangering her child. It's because right from the beginning she just sounds like a brat. So you're just not really on board with her at all. Obviously there's some twists and turns in this book. Obviously they're women in the wilderness. Like, what more could you do to connect the fact that, you know, this woman is willing to protect her young from anything, you know, that sort of raw emotion there, and touching with, you know, animal, like they said in the book, animal longing or something, that, or animal belonging. You know, I get the sort of metaphors and the similes that are there. I just didn't think they worked. Yeah, I think that would be a fair assessment. I gave this book 2 stars, and it definitely would have been a 1-star read, other than the fact that towards the end there started to be some, what I thought was actual real feeling and writing from Carla that didn't sound like an angsty like teenager. And I don't know, I felt like that definitely brought up the books. There was some sort of moments of darkness and thoughts that she was having that I thought, wow, that's really strong, that's really powerful. And that bumped it up to 2 stars for me. Otherwise, I would have given this book a 1 star, because quite frankly, you can tell from my review that I actually really didn't enjoy it that much. The final book I'm going to mention is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Atessa Moshfegh. Again, I mentioned this book when I did my What I'm Loving video, blah, blah, blah. I said in that video that I wanted to do a review video of that. I haven't yet done that review video, so when I do it and you're watching this video in the past, I'll link it up here and below. But yes, please stay tuned for that, because I will be doing a review video for that. But My Year of Rest and Relaxation is about our main character. We never actually find out her name, which I find so interesting, because I don't know if anyone has read that book and you know her name, please let me know, because I don't know what her name is, and I have gone back to try and look, and I'm like, I don't think I ever really named this character. When I first saw this book, I was like, yes, this is a book for me. Like, the front cover was like this girl like so not interested. My Year of Rest and Relaxation, I'm like, me too, I would like to sleep for a year. And this book was getting all the rave reviews, but it's about our main character who decides to embark on a year of rest and relaxation. She does this through pharmaceutical drugs, and she goes to see this therapist, and there's this whole kind of funny, witty story there. But then it's also about her and her relationship with her friend Reva, and then sort of her relationship with her parents. And so you're taken back to the past of this unknown character's life, what it was like in the past, what her parents were like, and then how she sort of became friends with the girl Reva, who she's currently friends with, who comes to her house all the time. And it's an interesting book. Our character is very self-aware, and she's very witty, you know, she's very aware of the fact that she has privilege, aware of, like, you know, how dull life can be sometimes, and how stupid simple interactions can be and things like that. And because of this self-awareness, I think it makes for a very funny book. It's a very brutally honest book, I suppose, and yeah, I don't know, I found it interesting. I actually did think I liked the book. It wasn't like, yeah, I'm going to recommend everyone reads it, because actually the book doesn't hold much substance, but it was thoroughly very interesting, and it was just kind of like following a girl through a haze of like sleeping pills. Like, you kind of feel like she's the kind of like upstate New Yorker who's just walking around with dark sunglasses all the time and just like drinking coffee and smoking fags. Like, that's just kind of the impression I got from her. So whilst I enjoyed the book, I think a lot of my sort of her moments actually come from the rave reviews about the book rather than the content of the book. But yeah, I don't know if I just rambled too much about the contents of the book and, you know, ruined my review, but those are my thoughts on the book. So yeah, I guess actually this wasn't too bad. So there were 2 2-star books and 1 3-star book. So yeah, they are kind of meh. They're not books that I came away from reading thinking, wow, I really need to like read these books again. It's only My Year of Rest and Relaxation that really, I kind of had a really strong reaction to it, but that's because of, like I said, people's rave reviews. But the other 2, oh my god, I think, I'm not gonna lie, if I had a physical copy of Blue Ticket, I would have to have thrown it across the room, the amount of times it angered me. But never mind, we're done with that now. So that's my thoughts on the books that I read recently. Please let me know if you have read any of these books and have any sort of similar thoughts to me, different thoughts to me, and let me know what books you have been reading and loving, and I'll catch you in another video. Bye!